solo or self-adjusting clutch. When you pull it out of there, you'll see a groove cut in the back of the flywheel. It'll say new on one side and replaced on the other. When you see right here, there's a little black tab on this clutch. It's lined up with new. As we wear this pressure plate or the friction material on the clutch disc, this piece here will start moving towards center. Usually somewhere around in here, in my experience, you get a clutch that starts slipping and you have nothing to do but to replace the clutch and the pressure plate. Okay? As far as what's going on inside, we still got a clutch brake. We still have a throwout bearing, pressure plate, first disc, intermediate disc, second disc, and flywheel. Okay? As far as changing things, the weight's about the same as it is on a button clutch. So don't just rip these bolts out of here because everything's gonna fall out of there. Still has to be splined with the input shaft from the transmission going into the pilot bearing on our flywheel. Okay? When I say clutch disc, this is what they look like. This is a smaller version of what you all are going to take out. And the only reason I have it in here because it's easy to mess with. But you see the sides of this, the hub profile is different from one side to the other. When you take these out, they'll be marked flywheel side, transmission side. You really want to make sure that you put these back in and get in there the way they go. If you put them in there backwards, it'll let you bolt everything up, but you cannot operate the clutch. So you got to do the whole process back over again. These springs on our disc, they're for adapting force. When I lock this down, this hub will start to spin and then engage the flywheel of the transmission. Okay? When these start getting loose, if I could take them springs in there and roll them and it looks like these little lips are coming out, that thing is junk. Don't matter how much pad is left on this flywheel or this clutch plate. These, when they start getting down there, going down the road, you'll hear a chatter all the time, a constant chatter. A clutch slips every once in a while. It's because these things are bad. This hub is getting ready to spin all the way around and never put pressure to that disc. The intermediate plate, same way. If I look at the side of this, there's two different sections. There's a front and a back to it, so be very, very critical how you put that on there. Sets in there. This is going to lock into the flywheel. So these tabs on each end is going to lock into the flywheel so it can't move. And then we have our other disc. If we look at that, that thing's got a set, not two different ones, okay? We got two different clutch pads, so look at the hub on it. This one right here says side, or the flywheel side. So this side of it's gonna go to the flywheel, just like that. And if I had the right intermediate plate and the right other disc, this thing would almost set together now, okay? All right. This is our clutch release thing. This is a piece that's going through the bell housing. Our throwout bearing is sitting right here. I've got another rod here, and the rod is actually hooked to our clutch pedal. Okay? These wear. This right here is all it's making a clutch application. So these do wear. This is, if I can't ever adjust a clutch brake, I gotta suspect that this thing here, either the bushings in the bell housing are wore, and I push on it instead of twisting just like that, I get this number, okay? When I get that number, I only got pressure on one side of that clutch brake, it's not gonna engage, it's not gonna let me go in the first or reverse, okay? So these do wear. There's two different styles of these. We have a push and a pull style, okay? Typically in a truck, it's setting above the transmission or above the throwout bearing like this. As we push on the clutch, it pulls it toward the transmission. That's a pull. If it's set the other way in there like this and I push it and it pushed it toward the flywheel, that's a push type. Tractors, heavy equipment like to use pushes. We're mostly going to use pull in a heavy truck side. Okay. Clutch brake. This is a worn out clutch brake. These locking tabs right here in the center, they spline onto the input shaft of the transmission. If I constantly make a full brake pedal application every time I shift, I'm going to bust these off there, and this clutch brake's just on for a free ride. It's never going to do its job. Okay? I got friction material on one side, supposed to have some friction material on the other side. Sets against the bell housing, or I'm sorry, the throwout bearing and the front of the transmission on an input shaft bearing housing. Okay? If I don't watch what I'm doing here, I can screw stuff up. Okay? A 1/2 inch free travel and a 1/2 inch clearance ought to get me a loose clutch brake. If it's still tight, then I need to adjust the linkage on the clutch. That's the only time I'm ever going to adjust the linkage coming from the foot pedal to my clutch fingers. Okay? Another thing, when I go back to install this thing, the clutch fingers have to go over the throwout bearing and fall behind them. When you push it in there and it stick like that, you're almost going to be ready to bolt the bell housing to the flywheel housing. But if it's like this and I start bolting it, I'm going to bust my pressure plate. This thing's going to want to twist like this, so I pull it in and I'm going to bust my pressure plate. Now you're out another $400 to go buy you a pressure plate. So make sure when you push in there, this hits on top of the throwout bearing. As you slide it back in, it'll automatically fall down like that. Now you can start bolting the thing back together.